look at the diseases we have today. We're so sophisticated. We're so advanced. We're so far ahead in medicine, yet we're more sick and obese than ever before. I believe variety is a byproduct of that. You don't need variety. I think that's a cop-out for the weak. I think what you need is consistency. And if you're looking for variety, it's because you're looking to get some kind of joy from food. I know that lifestyle. I used to live to eat. Now I eat to live.
Welcome to the Dr. Ashley Show.
Welcome to the Dr. Ashley Show. Today, I have a really exciting guest with us, and I personally have had 3 years of mentorship and coaching, and he has completely changed my life and my family's life and PhD weight loss, my business as a whole. So I am so excited to welcome Bedros Keuilian to the show. He's an American entrepreneur and a believer in the American dream. He and his family are immigrants who escaped communism and came to the U.S. to find freedom, opportunity, and a better life. Today, Bedros is a serial entrepreneur and investor in over a dozen industry-leading brands and businesses. He's the founder of Fit Body Boot Camp, 3 times listed in Inc. magazine, as well as Entrepreneur Magazine's 100 fastest-growing franchise brands in the world. Bedros is the author of the Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Man Up: How to Cut the BS and Dominate in Business and in Life. Bedros believes in the power of the human spirit and uses the stage, TV, social media, his podcast, and his blog to share his immigrant edge and American dream story to help inspire audiences worldwide to get unstuck and reach their fullest potential. Welcome to the show, Bedros. I am so grateful you're here. I know you're one of the busiest men on the planet.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ashley. Good to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
I know we're going to learn a lot from you, and I would love to start by you sharing your story with us. You know, when and why you decided to start your fitness journey, how it became a core part of your life, and how it led you to become a personal trainer and then eventually found Fit Body Boot Camp.
Sure. To kind of encapsulate the whole thing, I always like to say I'm the immigrant edge and the American dream. And what I mean by that is I've had the good fortune to immigrate to the United States from a communist country, Armenia, when I was 6 years old. So my mom and dad risked their lives to escape the Soviet Union and come here. And I was the baby of the family, 6 years old. My brother was 19 years old and my sister was 22. So as you can see by the math, I'm also the oops baby. And when we came to the United States, we didn't speak English. We didn't understand the culture. It was pretty rough the first several years living in Section 8 housing and food stamps and, again, being the foreigner. But we knew that this country had such great opportunity, and we just needed to learn to assimilate and learn the culture and the language, et cetera, which my dad really stressed. He really stressed that. But where things led into my fitness journey and really starting multiple businesses in the fitness industry was a byproduct of me being very over fat and having low confidence, low self-esteem, low self-worth. Growing up, I guess we kind of ate whatever was available to us. And when you're living off food stamps, and fun story, my dad realized that these giant grocery stores had dumpsters in the back, and sometimes they have to throw away food that is expired but hasn't necessarily gone bad yet. And so, again, being the smallest one in the family, he would lift me up into the dumpsters, and I would fish out, bags of bread, cheese, lettuce, milk, anything that had expired or was maybe a little moldy that my mom could pick off the mold, and we would eat. So, and my mom had this gift where she could fry anything. And so she would take anything. I remember bread was dipped into an egg batter and then flour and then fried in a pan, and then we would eat it for dinner. And so, not realizing what macros were, like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, I naturally gravitated to eating fattier foods, carbohydrates, fats, sugars, etc. And so by the time I graduated high school, actually the year before graduation, so 11th grade, I was about 35 pounds over fat. And I'm talking like I had young man boobs, and I was shaped like a pear, and I was really insecure in terms of my fitness, how I showed up at school. And so I remember talking to my science class partner. His name is David. And David was on the football team, and he was fit. He was athletic, very charismatic personality. And I remember asking him, like, how do I get fit like you so that next year, senior year, I could ask out Nakaya to the prom? And Nakaya was this beautiful Latina woman or girl who went to school with us. So, he took me to the school gym, which was very intimidating, and he taught me how to work out a few times. He kind of explained that protein is my friend, and carbohydrates and fats should be limited and managed. So I spent all of summer, the summer before senior year, working out like a machine and eating how David asked me to eat. And being young, I lost the entire 35 pounds by the time senior year started. And so I looked very different. All of a sudden, I'm being recognized and noticed for being fit. Well, I never had the confidence to ask Nakaya to the prom, so that never happened, never went to prom. My entire trajectory on life was forever changed, to be honest with you, because beyond the physical fitness, beyond being fit, the self-esteem, the confidence, the self-worth, the being able to make eye contact with people, to me, that was life-changing. And I remember thinking, I think I want to be a personal trainer when I leave high school. I want to get certified as a personal trainer and really start working with people who want to transform their lives. Yes, for the health benefits, but beyond that, for the self-esteem, self-worth, confidence, etc. And so, unbeknownst to me, I was going to work with people of all ages, men and women, across all ages. And unbeknownst to me, I'm sure you know this, you've worked with individuals one-on-one in the past, you develop a bond, a connection, and you realize that how they feel about themselves is a direct representation of their relationships, of their bank account, of their mental health. How your physical body shows up is a direct reflection of a lot of things in your life. And so I had the good fortune to be able to realize not only am I coaching them in their health, but I'm coaching them in other areas of their life. And I guess one thing led to another. And I had a mentor, a kind of a built-in mentor, a personal training client of mine. His name is Jim Franco. So I was 25 years old at the time. I'm 49 now, and he was in his mid 60s. And Jim Franco just saw something in me. And he said, why don't you open up your own personal training studio instead of working for this big box gym and making $12 an hour? And I said, you really think I could do it? He said, yeah. And he said, I'd even loan you the money. And so, he taught me entrepreneurship. He taught me sales. He taught me how to approach people and to start a conversation. Like, I didn't know any of those things. I just knew I wanted to help people. And so working at a big box gym, LA Fitness, they had kind of fish in a barrel. They had people who wanted to get in shape, and I wanted to help them get in shape. And so if I could talk them into buying a personal training package, then I could serve them. And so Jim Franco really helped open my eyes as an entrepreneur, but beyond that, as a servant to humanity. You fast forward another decade from that period, from 25 to 35. And by that point, I had opened up 5 personal training studios, sold those personal training gyms in San Diego, and then launched this big international brand that we have called Fit Body Boot Camp, which is now almost 600 locations worldwide between Canada and the US. Like, my life's dream was to impact millions of people by helping them transform their health, but really transform their mental health as well. And it's come to fruition through Fit Body Boot Camp, and I'm just really grateful for that.
What were your first 5 personal training centers called?
They were called Premier Results, and they were more
Okay.
one-on-one. Yeah,
Mhm.
they're called Premier Results. Each one was about 2,500 square feet, and only one-on-one personal training. So we had about 10 personal trainers in there and 2 managers, an assistant manager and a main manager. And they managed the schedules. They onboarded new clients, and they handed them along to the personal trainers who would be a good fit for that client based on what they specialized in. But, one-on-one personal training becomes cost prohibitive unless you are really wealthy, unless you have the means to afford several $1,000s for a personal training program. You probably can't afford a one-on-one personal trainer. So when I had the opportunity to sell those gyms and go into the next iteration of my business model, I decided I would take that outdoor boot camp that was happening in parks and beaches and at school gymnasiums, and if I could bring it indoors inside of an actual 3,000 square foot gym where we can have one trainer and 15 to 25 clients, we can bring down the cost of personal training, make it more affordable and convenient, and actually help more people, reach more people. And so that's how Fit Body Bootcamp came to be. And that was 2012 when we launched Fit Body.
Pretty amazing, because since then that method has caught on fire and there are so many boot camps out there.
Yeah. There's so many variations of group training boot camps,
Uh-huh.
whether they're 30 minutes or 60 minutes or 45
Mhm.
or smaller group or bigger group, but the model has proven itself. And I remember when I thought about it back in 2009, 2010, right after the housing market crash, and that was another motivator for me because I realized, all right, not a lot of people can afford one-on-one personal training, especially after the housing market crash.
Mhm.
If I could make it more affordable and more convenient so that more people can work out at the same time, this might work. But I had to make it weatherproof because not all states are like California or
Mhm.
Florida that would allow you to train clients year round. And so bringing it indoors and putting systems and processes in place, which is how my brain works anyway, was a natural byproduct of that. But yeah, the boot camp model has been proven since. But there was a lot of doubters in the beginning. In fact,
Mhm.
telling me that I sold out, that personal training is all about one on one. And how dare I think that I could help people in a group environment? I'm just trying to scam them out of their money. And I remember thinking to myself, look, I don't follow sports at all. I'm just not a sports type of person. But I do know that even at the highest level of the NFL, Super Bowl teams, it's a coach with many athletes. And if they could train these elite athletes in a group environment, then why can't we train the average Mr. and Mrs. Jones who just needs some instructions and guidance and motivation and accountability? And turns out I was right.
Yeah, and now it creates this community where people can support each other. So I love it, and I've gone and taken a class, and it's one of my
Oh, cool.
favorite. Yeah, it's motivating
That's
for
awesome.
me. So you've worked with thousands, maybe, I don't know, millions of people who have struggled with their weight. What do you think has led to the obesity health crisis in the US?
Misinformation. When you look at the food pyramid and they got all the
Mhm.
carbohydrate and sugary sweet foods at the bottom, and then you go all the way to the top, and it's like, oh, look, that's where the protein is. It's misinformation. And I don't want to sound like a tinfoil hat wearing paranoid person, but if I were pharmaceutical companies, if I were the big giant food conglomerates, I would want to find ways to keep people fat and sick so that they would continue to buy my products and pharmaceuticals. And the way I would probably get them to stay fat and sick is to not share the truth, inverting that entire food pyramid on its head, and then educating people to work out in moderation and actually not putting the words heart healthy on a box of frosted flakes that is so processed and sugar laden, and really regulating portion sizes, encouraging people to be out in the sunlight, encouraging mental health, because the more we can erode mental health, the more people remember the number one thing people run to cope with their mental health is food, when really one of the best things that you could go to cope with your mental health issues is exercise and eating healthier foods that are going to produce a healthier outcome. And so of course, if I was the food industries that wanted to use cheap products to keep people fat and sick, like sugars and processed foods, and if I was the pharmaceutical companies that was then going to give them medication to mask their symptoms, what would I do next? I might go lobby the big governments and line their pockets so that they would create a food pyramid and an education system for young kids that encourage them to eat basically food that is overly processed, overly fattening, to keep them sick and fat and dependent. And so that's
Mhm.
exactly what I believe has happened.
So then how do we educate ourselves in the right way? How do we dig ourselves out?
Well, I think we have to see where the source of education is. That's a great question, right? So, how do we educate ourselves in the right way? Because I thought the school system was teaching us what we needed to know. I thought big government, daddy government, really had the best of intentions for us. Gosh, it seems like they don't. So, today we've got something like social media, like this podcast, where good people like you are literally going on YouTube and Instagram and podcast platforms and creating your own show and speaking the truth. And so now we have to say, all right, I have to unplug from the systems education process and plug myself into independent sources of truth. So today we're almost in a some kind of a revolution of information, of education, and it's coming from individuals like you who are willing to speak the truth and are willing to share what's right, but you're up against big mainstream media that is the megaphone of effectively big government, who is run by the military industrial complex, pharmaceutical companies, and of course the food industry that is poisoning us. So it's the fight of David and Goliath. But let's not forget that David wins.
Yeah. A new Netflix series came out, You Are What You Eat, and it's the same thing, just pushing specific agendas, and it's pretty darn frustrating, but we continue
Yeah,
to speak out.
yeah,
So then
that's
what
exactly
would you
right.
say are essential habits for older individuals that you think can really help improve their health and fitness?
Well, so as we get older, I'm 49 years old, and I've, since realizing that fitness was the gateway to a better life. So since the age of 18, 19 years old, I started to embrace fitness. At 49, I've got achy elbows, achy shoulders, achy knees. Time does catch up with all of us. And if I were to say what are essentials today, I would say eat foods that are not going to inflame your body. To most foods that are packaged, if it comes packaged and processed and has a high shelf life, it's probably going to inflame your body. And as a older individual, now I'm almost 50 years on this planet, 49 years old, I can tell you that my body doesn't like inflammation. In fact, it doesn't like to be acidic, so I try and keep it more alkaline. I take things that are going to keep inflammation away. I make sure my sleep patterns. So sleep is another one. So we want to control inflammation, increase alkaline, and decrease acidity in our body. We want to also make sure our sleep patterns are dialed in, as in, don't just try and get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, but get 7 to 8 hours of good sleep, as in sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time. Like for me today, I do that 7 days a week. It used to be that I could get away with 5, 6 hours of sleep when I was 10 years younger. And on weekends, I could get away with 2, 3, 4 hours of sleep, and my body would fix itself. Not anymore. I need that consistent sleep. I realize sunlight matters so much. And in fact, yes, we all take vitamin D pills, the D3, but how much of that actually gets absorbed versus actually exposing my skin to sunlight, for 25, 35 minutes a day? And the people that say, well, I don't have time, I bet if I parachuted into anyone's life and kept track, a little journal of what they were doing, it's like, do you really need to be watching that TV show episode after episode? Do you need to be spending so much time watching sports on a weekend? How much time are you really going to be screen sucking on social media on this device? I could steal time from those wasteful things and apply it towards a better fitness program and making fitness a priority, making eating well a priority, higher protein, more greens, less sugary foods, less processed foods. And all those things end up, water. Like when I hear people, Ashley, when I hear people say that, well, I don't like the taste of water, uh, I have to stop myself from slapping them, because how water, like it is like 70 to 80% of our body is water. How can we not like water? And you can't get the replacement of water from coffee or tea or a frappuccino or energy drinks, because you're expecting your body to extract water from a chemically based, high sugar, overly processed beverage. Like that's a lot of expectation. You want to talk about high acidity and high inflammation? Like that's what you're doing when you're drinking those canned beverages. Like learn to drink water, what God gave us. So simple things: sunlight, water, keep your body alkaline, reduce inflammation, higher protein, more veggies, get your sleep. And before you know it, you're like, gee, I'm actually living a good life. And my friend Dan, I'm forgetting Dan's last name right now, but he's the founder of the Functional Aging Institute. And Dan Ritchie, he's got a PhD in geriatric fitness and geriatric training.
Hmm.
And he says we're not supposed to get old and then get sick and then be in a convalescent home and be in and out of hospitals and be on 30 different medications and then just slowly die a painful death. We should get old and one day not wake up. And that's the ideal way to die. But for that to happen, you've got to kind of go through this list that we just talked about.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you're speaking truth because I messaged you and wished you a happy new year, and you said that you were in bed by 9:30 or 10 on New Year's
Right.
Eve. So
Right. It's not sexy, but it's what works.
yeah, I'm pretty much there too. So it's just the only way that I think you can hit your peak potential if that's what interests you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you are so busy. I mean, how many businesses do you own?
I own 7 businesses, and I've invested in 6 other companies. One of them being Fuel Hunt, this apparel line that I wear. And whether it's the businesses that I own or the businesses that I've invested in, again, I see myself as an athlete. Like as an entrepreneur, I see
Mhm.
myself as an athlete. And if my goal is to serve, if the scoreboard is to see how many humans I can serve by improving their life, improving their health, improving their mindset, improving their financial status, that is my scoreboard, then I have to look at myself as an athlete and I have to treat myself as an athlete. So I make my sleep and my exercise and my nutrition and even my peace of mind a priority, because an athlete who's playing in the NBA, NFL, NHL, they treat themselves accordingly to, they're going to get a contract next year or not based on how they perform. My performance as an entrepreneur is based on how well I keep myself. And so I do treat myself like an athlete. And I think if every person, whether they have a job or if they have a career or if they are going to school to get their degree in something, if you say, hey, I'm an athlete in this industry, or you're an entrepreneur, just see yourself as an athlete and start treating yourself as such, you'll always be in that top 5 percentile where all the winners hang out.
Will you share with us what your day-to-day routine is for a diet and workout?
Yeah, yeah. So every day I wake up at 5:30, and I'm human like everyone else, so I get the desire to hit the snooze button, and so I get the desire to hit the snooze button like everybody else. So I've disabled. There's a feature on your iPhone that you can just turn off the snooze button, so that when your alarm goes off, you can only hit off, stop. That's it. You can't hit snooze, because I don't want to snooze. That I believe that's telling our creator that I will take 10 or 15 more minutes of interrupted, crappy sleep over getting up and living my purpose-driven life. So I never hit the snooze button, and already I'm stacking a W instead of an L for a loss. And when I get up, I like to kind of put myself in a state of gratitude, because I'm naturally an angry, bitter person. I know what I am made of. I'm very intense. And so I'll wake up sometimes a little angry and bitter at life, but it's not for any other reason other than I'm just a curmudgeon. However, a curmudgeon that has a heart to serve. And so I found one of the best ways to put myself in a state of gratitude is to send out 3 gratitude text messages to people in my life that I'm grateful for, that have added value to my life over the years. I'll send out 3 gratitude text messages, drink my 30 ounces of water that's sitting right there on my nightstand, and then I'll turn on the Jack Johnson Spotify channel, because I love his music. It calms me, it makes me happy. And while I'm showering, I'll listen to Jack Johnson. By the time I go downstairs, an hour has gone by at 6:30. I'll have a protein shake, 2 scoops of our Truline whey protein, a little bit of oatmeal mixed in there. I'll have a coffee, black with a little bit of almond milk, and another glass of water. And I'll work on my laptop. I call it my GSD list, my get shit done list. And that is a list that I made the night before of things I need to do in the morning that it's going to move my businesses forward. And again, I see myself as an athlete, and my sport is entrepreneurship. So I'll have my protein shake, my coffee, and my water as I'm working on my laptop for another hour or so, and maybe an hour and a half. By 9 a.m., I'm on my way to the gym to work out. And I give myself about an hour and 15 minutes to get a good workout in, and then to go across the street to the park and walk at a high pace, anywhere from a mile and a half to 3 miles every day. I can be in my own thoughts. I believe in what's known as bilateral stimulation. When you're walking, when you're swimming, when you're biking, doing anything repetitive, the left and right side of your brain begin to work together to solve your life's problems. And one of the best ways to get bilateral stimulation is walking, jogging, running, biking. And so that's what I do. Also gives me the opportunity to get some sun living here in Southern California. In terms of my meals, so I've already had my protein shake. So by the time I get to HQ, I will have a chicken Caesar salad. By that point, it's around 11 o'clock. I'll have in fact, I just had one again. Chicken Caesar salad from the Habit restaurant, double chicken, no croutons, dressing on the side. And I have 2 of those while I'm at HQ. So that gives me 2 mounts of 60 grams of protein. I've already had 40 grams in the morning. And then I'll go home at night and I will have whatever Diana has cooked up, which is usually some kind of either salmon or chicken dish, another 60 grams of protein. And then at night, I'll treat myself to yogurt, plain Greek yogurt, non-fat, with a scoop of our strawberry protein mixed in there, because it's got little chunks of dehydrated strawberries that taste really yummy. And that'll be my dessert. And once a week on date night, on Wednesday nights, I'll cheat. Wherever we go to dinner, I will eat like a savage animal. Bread, butter, fried food. So I have a weekly reset, knowing that there is a reward. I could structure the rest of my day accordingly. And so that's the food part of it. And I try and get about a gallon and a half of water. Now I'm 6 foot, 220 pounds, so that works for me. Protein wise, I get about 210 to 220 grams of protein a day. Carbohydrates, you could tell by what I listed off, they're kept pretty low, about 150 grams a day. Fat, maybe about 50, 60 grams a day. Sometimes I'll get avocado on those 2 salads, or at least at dinner. And I'll have fish oils at night, high amounts of fish oils, omega-3s in the evening. But in terms of once I get to work here and my chicken Caesar salad's waiting for me, I've got 2 great assistants who kind of look after me that way. They know my pattern of life. I have a very boring, consistent pattern of life, and that makes my life predictable, predictably healthy, predictably profitable, predictably servant to humanity. But at work, I'll do these. I'll do Zooms. I'll do coaching calls with clients. I will take meetings with my leadership team for all the 7 companies. And I realize I'm a workaholic, so I don't have a key to HQ. The last person out of the building usually comes and knocks on my door here in my office, and they go, "Hey, I'm the last person out." And I go, "Great, I'm going out with you," because I don't know how to lock up. And that'll be sometime around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening. And then at night, I'll get a fun workout in with my son. So I do 2 workouts a day. The second one is just me and my son bonding. I'm not pushing myself as intensely as I do in the morning. It'll just be a fun workout where, I train my son, I spot him, I do a few sets myself. Sometimes we'll roll out the mats in my gym and we'll do jujitsu and we'll roll. Great bonding time, then go home and hang out with the family and in bed by 10 o'clock and then rinse and repeat.
What do you say to people who talk about needing variety, or in another way saying, if they ate that way, I would hear, "There's no variety. I'm restricted. I'm deprived." How can you help people get out of that deprivation restriction mindset that plagues a lot of us, and I think sabotages
Yeah.
our best intentions?
Yeah. I think variety is the seed, just like a acorn is the seed of an oak tree. Variety is the seed of self-sabotage where diets and your health is concerned. I believe that to the core. You don't need variety. Go back in history. Go back 100 years where people, may have done their own hunting and killing. They didn't have much variety, probably ate the same stuff over and over again pretty regularly, whatever the season would bring out in terms of animals or shrubbery, in terms of berries and potatoes and beets and things like that. Not a lot of variety there. Or go back 1,000 years to the caveman time, where again, not a lot of variety there. You ate what was seasonal. It was pretty predictable. And well, look at the diseases we have today. We're so sophisticated. We're so advanced. We're so far ahead in medicine, yet we're more sick and obese than ever before. I believe variety is a byproduct of that. You don't need variety. I think that's a cop-out for the weak. I think what you need is consistency. And if you're looking for variety, it's because you're looking to get some kind of joy from food. I know that lifestyle. I used to live to eat. Now I eat to live. So I looked for variety. I couldn't wait to try a different kind of cheesecake if I went to New York. And let me try the New York style cheesecake. And let me try the cheesecake here in California. I wanted variety when I had no sense of purpose and meaning in my life. The more I developed sense of purpose and meaning in my life, servitude, the more I saw myself as a professional athlete and not an amateur peasant, the more I realized that I don't need variety in my food. I don't need variety in my schedule. If I want variety in my schedule, I will schedule something that's different. For example, I surf a lot, to the point where I actually have a surfboard right there in my office. I have surfboards everywhere. I got about 15 surfboards, and you never know when you need a surfboard, so I keep one everywhere. But because I surf, now I don't just grab my board and go surfing. My lifestyle doesn't lend to that. I have to have Joan schedule a surf day that could be 2 weeks from now. So if I want variety, Joan, schedule variety into my schedule. But it's never going to be a whim. Anyone that does anything on a whim or off variety is looking to sabotage their life, or they're replacing purpose and meaning with variety in the form of food or activity or a vice like alcohol or some kind of weed or vaping, cigarettes, whatever.
So it's a lack of purpose and meaning. And when we
Absolutely.
find that, then we can better find consistency and let go of that sabotaging mindset.
Yeah, because we all want to live a life of meaning. We all want to be seen as like, man, this guy or gal is making a change for humanity in some way, either in your community, in your family, or in the world. And if you don't have that, by the way, I always talk about it's about money, meaning, and mastery, right? Money, as in make money because you do need money in these days to solve your life's problems of bills and expenses and mortgage, etc. Meaning, a sense of purpose, significance, fulfillment, because you're meant to serve. You don't want to just occupy space because your conscience will show you what through anxiety and depression, if you're just occupying space and not really serving humanity and not meaningfully adding value, your conscience will wake you up to that by giving you anxiety and depression. And then mastery of self, overcome your traumas, overcome your eating addiction, overcome your lazy habits, overcome the bad programming that mom and dad gave us, whatever it is. So money, meaning, and mastery of self. And so if we don't do those things, then we go to the easier ways to get dopamine, which is food and variety and alcohol and things that don't really serve us.
So, you often talk about motivation versus discipline. And I think everyone listening to this needs to learn because I will often hear, gosh, I'm just so motivated and I'm doing well. And then, oh man, my motivation has waned, which it usually does. And then we fall off the wagon. So, could you share the difference between the two, and then how to stay disciplined in your routine, even when you're not feeling up to it? Because I'm sure that even for you, Bedros, there are days when you don't feel like working out or you don't feel like eating the chicken salad. Can you share the difference between the two and how to stay disciplined?
Sure, sure. To be able to explain the difference between motivation and discipline would require that I first explain two chemicals in the human body, which is dopamine and serotonin. Both of those are a feel-good chemical. Like when you win the lottery or you're at Las Vegas and you get triple sevens and you win the jackpot, that is a big dopamine hit. In fact, when you're on social media scrolling and screen sucking and you see something that excites you or somebody a lot of people liked your social media post, that is a big dopamine hit. Dopamine is very quick, very instant, and then it's very fleeting. Serotonin, on the other hand, is long term. Like you have to accomplish a long term goal to get that long serotonin hit. It's over time. What we want to do is we want to get used to getting addicted to serotonin and not dopamine spikes. So, for example, think about 2009, 2010, when young Bedros decided that, I got this great idea for an indoor boot camp. I'm going to call it Fit Body Boot Camp. And I go running to my wife. I'm like, honey, this thing's going to change the world. She's like, holy hell, it is going to change the world. And we're going to help so many people. And our life is going to change because we're going to make money as a byproduct. That night, that was a big dopamine hit. Now imagine if on day 2 and day 3 and day 4, I was a little motivated. By day 5 and 6, wait, I got to start a franchise. It's going to cost us money. There's different states have different requirements for franchises. Oh, man. All right, I'm done. What's the next dopamine hit I can chase, right? Now, so I had my dopamine. Hey, honey, we're doing this thing. Are you on board? Yes, I am. Great, we're going to do it together. And then, even when I find out it's going to cost us money, I do it anyway. Even when I find out the Federal Trade Commission oversees franchises, I do it anyway. Even when I find out 13 of our 50 states have different franchising regulations, I do it anyway. Even when I find out that some franchises get sued on a class action lawsuit by franchisees, I do it anyway. Even when I start the first Fit Body Bootcamp locations, the first 20, and a client dies, because people die in gyms, believe it or not. It happens every day. I keep growing the brand anyway. And I set my goal to 500 locations. And after 10 years, I hit my goal. What a serotonin hit. It didn't take motivation. It took discipline. Dopamine is motivation. Serotonin is discipline. It's doing what you need to do, what God, your creator, your conscience or consciousness has bestowed upon you to do, even when it's cold, you're tired, you're achy, you didn't sleep well, it's raining outside, there's too much snow, you got a little sore throat. It's doing it anyway. That is discipline. Motivation is fleeting. Discipline is here to stay. And I think that's what people need to realize. Do I want dopamine or serotonin? We're so conditioned right now for dopamine hits that we are also looking for motivation. Motivation will get the tires rolling. Discipline will keep the car going across the country, even when the weather's not favorable for us.
So let's say that you have purpose and meaning, and now you have discipline toward that purpose and meaning. That means you're on a good projection here.
Hmm.
But I also find that folks get stuck in an old identity, and that shifting stories, rewriting stories, and shifting identity is also a key part in being successful. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Ooh, you're talking about the trifecta of awesomeness
Mhm.
here, because when you have fixed your identity crisis, when you have a true, meaningful, purposeful goal, and then when you are disciplined towards that goal, you become a formidable force. Like you become unstoppable. You are now a nuclear bomb and not just a pistol to deal with. And so that is the third thing, which is the identity. So, how do we fix our identity? And when I say identity, most people might say, well, I don't think I'm worthy of success. I don't think I'm worthy of losing all this weight. I don't feel lovable. I feel like, I don't deserve this. I'm always big boned. I always sabotage myself. There's a great book out there, by the way, for anyone who feels like they tend to sabotage and never hit their goals, any goal in life. It's called The Big Leap, and the book is written by Gay Hendricks, great author. Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And in it, he talks about the upper limit, meaning we all have this glass ceiling that we hit in our success, in our weight loss, in our relational goals, in our financial goals, in our mindset goals. And when we hit that glass ceiling, it's uncomfortable. It's as high as we've ever been. It's as close to uh, the top that we've ever been, and it's uncomfortable. I don't know it. I don't like it. I don't feel I deserve to be here because of what happened to me as a kid, trauma, bad experiences. Mom and dad called me fat. They've always said I was dumb and dopey, and I'm not. I'll never be successful. Whatever the story is forged an identity that has created a glass ceiling. And when you're pressed against that, it's uncomfortable. You self-sabotage to get back to a place that is familiar. Even though it sucks to be there, it's familiar, which is unfortunate. So, where does that false identity come from? It comes from the stories that we have been either told by others or the stories that we tell ourselves because something happened. In my case, when I was a young man, I was a young boy between the ages of 4 and 6. I was molested in Armenia by two older boys over and over again. And so when I talked about that we escaped the Soviet Union and came to the United States, you can imagine I was freed from that constant molestation. But that left mental and emotional scars on me. I felt broken growing up. I felt unlovable. I felt a lot of rage, a lot of shame. And how can you have those low frequency vibrational energy, shame, rage, broken, unlovable, and still be able to thrive in life? And so I kept butting up against my own glass ceiling and then sabotaging myself. And it was a routine thing that happened to me. And so I share this with you because when I was able to rewrite my story, and I worked with a therapist, in my case, I worked with a therapist, an awesome guy named Kevin Downing out here in Brea, California. I worked with a therapist and I realized that our story that we tell ourselves impacts our belief systems. Our belief systems creates our identity. And once we have an identity, then we go out into the world looking for evidence to reinforce that identity. So if I have this story that, this bad thing happened to me and therefore I'm unlovable, then my belief system is that I'm unworthy of happiness and success. Well, then my identity is that I'm broken and I don't deserve happiness. And therefore, I will look for evidence in the world. I will, Ashley says, "Hi, Bedros, how are you?" But you said in a way that I feel is condescending when really you meant it in the most awesome and kindest way. But I'm going to take it as a condescending way to go, see, she's just saying that. She doesn't really mean it. She doesn't care how I am. She's just saying that because the platitude that people want to give. Well, if I can go and rewrite my story that I'm lovable, I'm awesome, I'm a great human, I deserve happiness, and I deserve fulfillment, then my belief systems will change, which means my identity will shift, which means I will now find evidence that I'm a good human, that I'm deserving of happiness, of great friends like you, of a meaningful life, and then I will execute accordingly. And so your story determines your outcome. If you take the pen back and start rewriting in those empty pages of your life's book how the story goes from here, you will then re-engineer a new life, which is pretty awesome.
How does one start to rewrite their story?
That is where I say my life's mission is helping people realize that they need to make money, a lot more money. They need to have meaning, and they need to have mastery of self. So that third thing, mastery of self. You
Mm-hmm.
start rewriting your story by self-help books, a good therapist, doing hard challenging, because adversity does introduce a person to their high self. Like, think about this. Anytime you've had to deal with adversity, physical or mental or emotional adversity, and you've overcome it, you have found a newer, better, higher version of yourself. It's just adversity does introduce us to our higher self. And so it's a combination of all that: books, courses, seminars, YouTube. I'd rather listen to you speak on a podcast than go watch some gossipy podcast about the Kardashians. One's going to make me feel good about myself. The other one's going to make me feel bad about myself, that, well, I should be out there on the red carpet drinking booze and having a Brazilian butt lift or whatever it's called. But instead, I'm going to listen to you. Oh, that's how I eat. That's how I sleep. This is how when motivation doesn't kick in, this is how I focus on discipline. And so self-mastery is a byproduct of doing hard things, challenging yourself, really the self-work through therapy. And therapy shows up many ways. Talk therapy, there's EMDR, there's hypnosis, there's books, courses, etc. But the mastery of self has to happen, because hurt people hurt people. And if you're walking around hurt emotionally and mentally, you're going to go around hurting others unknowingly and constantly feeling shitty about it.
I've heard you say that we consume too much. We need to create more and consume less. And that probably goes hand in hand with all this, don't
Correct.
you think?
You're absolutely right. And again, those who believe in God and a higher power, a creator, right? He created. And if he made us in his image, we should be doing more creating of good, of great information, of servitude, and less consuming. We don't want to just consume and be a value extractor. We want to be a value adder, create.
Mm-hmm. I love that. My last question for you, Bedros. Many people are concerned about passing down their own poor health habits to their next generation. So their grandkids, their kids. We serve a lot of people who have grandkids and they're dropping weight because they want to be around. And they also don't want to be a burden to their family as they continue to age. And so, especially for these folks who have struggled with health issues for a long time, what advice would you give those who want to break the generational patterns of poor health and poor mindset?
Yeah, well, the best advice I would tell them is this: that the buck has to stop with somebody. Why not you? Like, why not you be that change maker in your family's genealogy? And beyond that, think about this: there were people in your life who maybe served as a bad role model, a bad example. Because listen, everybody around us is either a cautionary tale or they're an example of good humanity. And well, I'd rather be an example of good humanity than a cautionary tale of what not to be. And so for that reason alone, once you start seeing yourself as a role model, doesn't matter if you're grandma, grandpa, doesn't matter if you're mom or dad, doesn't matter if you're older brother or sister, or you're an aunt and uncle, you're a role model to these younger generation, to the people that connect with you every day. Recently, I've always stayed lean, but recently I lost 13 pounds because I've taken on jujitsu, and I realized for me to be faster at jujitsu, if I weigh less and get even leaner, I could be stronger and faster. Well, guess what? My barber just came here to HQ to cut my hair about an hour ago, and he walks in and whoa, look at you. I go, what? He goes, you look amazing. I go, well, thank you. He's like, man, I can't believe you're 49 years old. I mean, I got gray in my beard. He goes, what are you doing? I said, well, I just got even more disciplined on my diet, and doing jujitsu on top of that helped me burn more calories. And the last 6 weeks, I've lost 13 pounds and I feel great. He's like, wow, fantastic. And so I realized I'm a role model to that young man who came here to cut my hair. I'm a role model to Andrew and Chloe, who realized, wow, dad is a savage. Like, he still brings it. Like, at night when we always watch one episode of The Office before we go to sleep as a family. My kid's daughter, especially Chloe, loves The Office, and she's 16. And I wear shorts around the house, and we'll sit on the couch, and she'll sit on the couch next to me, and she'll just like grab my thighs, and she goes, look at your thighs. Look at the quads on you. She calls them sausage thighs, lovingly. So guess what? When she was 13, she started noticing that dad's different than all the other dads. He's got abs. He's got big muscular legs. And, hey, dad, can I go to the gym with you? You sure can, honey. And now she's training, and I inspire. I'm a role model. And so if we start seeing ourselves as a role model and not just like, well, I'm only hurting myself, what's the problem? No, you are hurting others by saying it is okay to be fat and a liability to others and to be sick. And by the way, all that comes with a negative mindset too. I've never found anyone who's sick and a liability and fat, but an optimistic kind of a cheerleader of a person. Those dots don't connect.
Mm-hmm.
So you're also like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, just negative Debbie Downer. I'd rather be like Tigger and be inspirational and motivational. And that means I have to carry myself as a role model.
And now you have to stay really fit because your son is going to follow you.
Yeah.
And he's going to overcome your strength if you're not careful.
That's exactly it. And then we're already getting there. So I have to keep training hard.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, he's going to put me in my place.
That's right. Well, thanks so much, Bedros. Where can people learn more about you, follow your messaging? What's the best path?
Yeah, two best ways to do that. They could either type my name, Bedros Keuilian, into Google, and my website will come up, bedroskeuilian.com, or they can just find me on Instagram at Bedros Keuilian.
Thank you so much, Bedros. I really appreciate your time. This was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
I hope you got great value from this episode with Bedros. You can see why I love him so much as a coach and a mentor. If you are listening to this on a podcast platform, please follow and leave a review. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. It helps the algorithm so that we can impact and get these positive messages out to more people. And definitely leave a comment below. I'll be here to answer your comments. I love reading them. So remember, you've got to step up to make the change. Lead with your heart, train your mind, and do not negotiate with your body. I'll see you next time.